Hey everyone, it's the guy here, and I want to state nothing is more frustrating than having power drops or engine stalls while trying to run your trains. And in this video, I'll show you a cost-effective way that I use personally to provide reliable power to your entire layout. I use Kato Unitrack, and it's a very sturdy snap-together system that makes assembling as well as removing your track incredibly easy. But the downside to using this track are the two normal methods of providing power, which are a pre-soldered unijoiner or a plug-in cable system that connects under a track piece using a proprietary connector. Now, don't get me wrong here. This is a great product. They're perfectly fine to use since they're plug and play, ready to go. But they tend to add up in price as your layout gets bigger and bigger and you need more and more power feeders in different sections. Now, let's go through the materials you'll need and I'll show you how I make my own. The first thing I use is the unijoiner removal tool that comes with almost all Kato packs. You put it on there, you pull it off. It makes it really easy so you don't have to brute force and ignorance it with your fingers. I use this 20 gauge bell wire. It's solid copper and it comes twisted like this on a huge roll. You could find it at any hardware store. Electrical tape, wire cutters, some way to mark measurements, pen or marker will do, and a screwdriver or something small like a butter knife. And I use a drill with a 3/4 wood drill bit because all of my layout is made out of hollow core doors and this goes through nicely. The first thing I do is take the unijoiners off using the tool, and then I get my small screwdriver, press upward and inward to release the actual joiner that the rail sits in. I'll also go ahead and pre-measure my wire to reach from the track to my main bus that runs underneath the tables. And I always put a couple of extra inches as well in case I need to route around something or go around the bracing on the tables. And now that I have it cut, I'll trim about 1/2 inch off one end with my wire cutters. Now, what I'm about to show you is the best way that I've found to do this with solid wire. I don't know if you could make this work with stranded wire. So I take the end and put a bend about 1/4 inch from the end of it so I can loop it back on itself. And I make sure the loop is slightly smaller in length than the actual joiner. You want the loop to have a slightly snug fit when you put it in the joiner. When I have my loops, I put a bend at the base of the loop so the bend is horizontal, not vertical. And then I grab the joiner that came out of the whole unijoiner thing, the little metal portion, and I bend off the metal flap that's on one side. And I just use my screwdriver and just keep bending it and it comes free. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the bent wire and push it through the unijoiner base that's hollow now, and then put the loop at the end that I made into the joiner, and then I'll fumble around for like a few seconds to actually get the joiner into the thing. But when it's in there, the tension from the loop being horizontal will create solid contact on both sides of the joiner, and then there's space on top for the rail to sit. Now, since I broke off one of the flaps that help hold the joiner in, it's not very secure, and you'll see in a moment it just comes flying off. So what we're gonna do is, when I get that back on there, when I put the joiner on and I have it in the housing for the unit joiner, I bend the wire underneath back directly underneath itself, because the 20 gauge wire I have fits perfectly in the grooves for it. And then I use my screwdriver to press a good fit. I used to solder the wire onto the metal joiner and then put it into the complete unijoiner, but my soldering skills aren't that great and it took a long time. So this is the method I found that just, it works every time, there's no problems, and it's really simple, and I can do maybe 10-15 feet of track in a matter of minutes. I also put a bend in the wire in the middle of the joiner. That way there's still wire held against it for tension, and then the joiner wire comes straight down the middle. That way it measures up right in the hole that I pre-measured. And now the next thing I'll do is go ahead and place the track back onto the joiners that I used. That way I'm not fumbling with the joiners when it's on the layout. I could just put it here, because sometimes the tension is really tight and you need to use an additional tool, or a hobby knife, butter knife or something, to actually push the copper wire out of the way so the rail can actually get in there. I go ahead and measure and pre-mark where I need to put the holes for my feeders to run down to my bus line. And with the Kato Unitrack, I don't have to remove entire sections. I could just move the small portion that I want. Now we're going to fast forward through the end scale earthquakes and sinkholes that I create in my table right here. And power tools make a huge mess, so I go ahead and take the time to just vacuum everything up right now. After it's clean and I have all my track prepped, I use the highly scientific method of just shoving the wire down the hole. And in a moment we'll go under the table and I'll show you how I connect the feeders to the bus line. Now I don't use suitcase connectors or anything like little hubs or anything like that. My bus line is one solid piece of wire. It's about 200 feet long, and I just strip the outside wire coating off of the pieces that I need, and then I hook the other end of the feeders up and wrap it around. And this is a good way that I found that I can test it without it being permanent. So if the track isn't where I want it to be, or I need to put something else, it's easy for me to just undo the wire and move it. And when I'm satisfied with the work, I'll go in later and solder it and then cover it with heat shrink or that tube stuff, or just tons of electrical tape. And I'll do this until I'm completely satisfied my entire layout is ready to go. After I've done operations or ran plenty of trains, maybe for a week or two, then I'll actually go back and make it permanent. And now that I have it all connected, I run the same train over the trouble spot and see that it's perfect. I hope you enjoyed watching the video. If you found the way I do my wiring helpful, please drop a like. And if you would like to stay updated on future videos, feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.